I'm not going to lie to you guys. Presence, In Through the Outdoor, were not really, I would say, like the better Led Zeppelin albums, okay? And the passing of John Bonham in 1980 pretty much sealed the deal for that band. But to the question that inspired this video. So basically, somebody wrote me a letter, an email, right? What do you call that when they send it to your Instagram? That's an email, right? I think, right? Whatever. They wrote me an email, and in the email they said, could Bobby Blotzer have saved Led Zeppelin? And it's a good question. I mean, it makes sense. I would argue that Presence and, In Through the Outdoor and all that, I would argue that the band was kind of like hitting a little bit of a creative wall, possibly. The late 70s were not really so kind to Led Zeppelin. I think the writing was on the wall that they weren't going to like stay together for very long, or maybe they were going to lose their record label. I don't know. But of course, the untimely passing of John Bonham in 1980, I think between his passing and how important of a role he played in the band and the declining album sales and a little bit of changing time. Remember, the late 70s were the disco era, and Kiss might have put out a disco record, but Led Zeppelin was not about that. I think that Bobby at the time might have been playing with Dawkins, possibly. I don't know if he was in Sister, or I don't know what bands he was in at that time. I know Stevens' Mickey Rat, I think, was around, but I don't think Bobby was a part of that. Otherwise, they would have made it. But basically, I think that if Led Zeppelin had had this sort of like near breakup or decline in the times in the early 80s, like even after, some of the first big Rat albums came out, even the mid 80s, possibly, I feel they would have made a move. If John was alive and everything, they probably would have said, listen, we want to try this young drummer from, Southern California. We want to like get our edge back. What if you go to like the bongos or something, or the maracas, tambourine. I mean, still percussion, but just kind of like off to the back, and let this young, stud Robert Bobby Blotzer get behind the kit and show them how it's done. And I think that if it meant the band seeing big sales again and, playing big venues, basically everything that happened to Rat after Bobby Blotzer joined the band, they started seeing more women under 200 pounds. They started to play to places that, had more than the capacity for 400 or 500, places that didn't include, a beer and a hot dog with your ticket sale. And the quality of the music, I mean, Beau Hill has even said that Bobby was probably the 5th or 6th favorite person in the whole studio to work with because of his sheer talent and his vision and his creativity and the camaraderie that they had, I mean, think of all the Happy Meals they probably ate behind the glass. Bobby showing Beau how to work the numbers and everything, showing the engineer how to do his job better so that Rat could have finer records to put out. So I think that it's an honest question. I just think the timing is off by like 3 or 4 years. And I have no doubt that, John Paul Jones and Jimmy Page and Robert Plant would have probably had a meeting with John Bonham and said, look, there's, you could play the recorder, you could play a flute, you could, maybe they could have even said, here, beat on this beer keg, like 30 years before Slipknot. Because John was a phenomenal drummer. It's just that I think the band would have done so much better with a real drummer. Well, I shouldn't say that. With a legend from the next generation, Bobby Blotzer. Now, Rat, if you think Rat would have given up Bobby without a fight, you are crazy. But it's interesting because if I'm not mistaken, Rat was with Atlantic. And if I'm not mistaken, Led Zeppelin was with Atlantic. So it would have been a civil war of magnificent proportions. Loyalists of Rat against loyalists of Led Zeppelin battling it out, in office to office combat, but I do believe that in the end, Rat probably would have been able to keep Bobby because they were, going all the way to the top, and there's no way that anybody was going to rock their heads around and round if Bobby Blotzer wasn't behind the kit. So I think that the bigger more successful band at the time would have prevailed. But let me tell you something. Do I think that Led Zeppelin would have, you know, transferred John Bonham to the maracas to get Bobby Blotzer behind the kid? Absolutely. And I think I don't think anybody would disagree with that. I mean, would you?